It's very, very hard to tell someone what is the next thing in their lives. It's a very personal choice. So my advice is, whatever you do, you have to have a plan. You really have to have a vision for yourself of a plan forward. Whatever it is, whatever obstacle is out there, you really mustn't lose focus of who you are and your identity. Your identity is key.
Sou trabalhador da Sonangol, bolseiro. Atualmente me encontro a fazer um mestrado em African Development. O mestrado faz parte de um processo que teve início ano passado, em que a Sonangol teve um papel preponderante na medida em que permitiu-me estar aqui para poder então ter esse conhecimento adicional que de certa forma vai contribuir para a minha carreira profissional e para a própria empresa.
Key to success is really that you need to be driven by excellence. You need to be driven by your passions. Well, whatever it is that you study, or whatever it is that you want to work at, it really doesn't matter. As long as you're driven by excellence and your passion, I'm sure you will succeed.
A LSE é uma escola muito diversa, então aprendemos muito com outras culturas. O curso em si, African Development, tem muitos estudantes africanos. Nós organizamos o evento que tem como tema principal, falando em inglês, mas é o Built for Africa, African Solutions to African Issues. A ideia é, tendo em conta a dinâmica agora do continente, nós temos um evento em que volta para buscar soluções para a África criadas no continente.
We try and invoke conversations about the current African situation, what we're trying to do to solve it, how we can solve it, why is it important, who needs to be involved. So we try and get as many influential people in one room as possible.
We have different frameworks. We have different legal frameworks. We have different political systems. We have different economic policies. What for me is really important, as Africans, what are the similar challenges we have? And what are the lessons that we could share with each other and to improve from each other? In a way, not to only try and benchmark Europe or America as our references, but also to look at our own examples, things that we have done well in the continent, and use those as part of our solutions. So I'll start with the urban development. The reason why I chose this is because it's a personal issue for me. It's a project I was involved with since 2009. I became very aware that the city that I loved, that I was brought up in since a little child, had changed tremendously. We have to have a plan and we have to have a vision for the future, and this must really start now. The challenge with this is that to manage a territory where you have issues such as poor tax collection systems, poor waste management, inadequate infrastructure, little access to education and health because of unplanned urban development, is going to be a massive challenge for any of you that one day wish to go into government. So this is something that we must address. I'm going to talk specifically about Luanda because obviously it's my city and it's the one that I know best. So what did we do? We looked at our town and how our town was sprawling. And we engaged with a number of stakeholders, everything from government to local communities. We spoke to teachers, we spoke to students. We went out and spoke to local authorities, to women in the market, to fishermen. And we tried to understand what was their vision, how do they think about where they want to live and where they want to bring up our children. And as somebody who's going to manage and be deciding politics and making political decisions, this engagement is truly important. On the story of master planning and really rethinking our cities, I think the big lesson here is that what we really want to see is people who live in African cities to go from living in dwellings to living in homes, and from being people who are renting accommodation to becoming homeowners. Because we really need to build a nation of homeowners who are able to pass their houses on to their children with clearly defined property rights, and in that way accumulate capital for the next generations. So now to share a completely different story, because I've decided to share 3 stories from my past today. We all live in African cities, and we've seen that we have these amazing street markets, and everything is sold in the street market, whether it's fruits, vegetables. So the story here is going from market to modern retail. And how do we make that evolution without leaving anyone behind? This is a particularly interesting case. I really love this story because it's a simple story, and it's sometimes an example that I give as a startup. This whole project costed about $60,000, about £40,000. And it started with 3 hectares of land. The land was cleared, and the local women that before were street sellers in the market were engaged to plant and prepare the land and plant little baby plants. And there's over 200 women that work there now. The farm has grown. What I mean to say, it really does not take that long to create change. It's one idea, a lot of commitment, setting it out, doing it, and you will see the results a few months later. It's been a very successful product. It's actually very, very good strawberries. They're very sweet. So comparatively, just to mention a bit more about the story, when I was about your age, I think 70% of the products on the shelves in the Luanda supermarkets, in Angolan supermarkets, were imported. And today, 60% of all goods are actually locally produced. There has been a lot of development in the financial services, and that's something that I'm very pleased to see. There's more and more banks in Africa, and what's great is there are even banks that are not just working in one country, but are working in a multitude of African countries and really creating a true African banking network. Now, this, for me, is key.
A engenheira Isabel dos Santos, que é uma pessoa de grande impacto no continente, líder de negócios, é conhecida, e então foi uma sugestão minha para que ela viesse então também compartilhar as suas experiências e trazer a sua visão sobre o que é que ela espera, o que é que ela vê como mundo de negócios em África.
We wanted to have Miss Isabel dos Santos here because she's clearly an influential woman. She can give us insights into how her company, her country, and also her personal experience can contribute to the development of the African continent. A lot of people are excited to hear what she has to say on her views and so on. People hear a lot about her, but it's very rare that they get a chance to be in a room, with someone like her.
The next growth is in Africa. The next growth is not in another continent. We are the fastest growing middle class economy in the world right now.
Estou totalmente ansioso por terminar o curso, voltar para Angola, voltar para Sonangol e dar o meu contributo.
So what's the next big thing? I think that the next big thing is definitely, the thing that you guys are probably going to be building, I think is going to be about energy. We still have a big energy deficit in the continent, and energy is key. And why? It's a major input for industry. If energy is too expensive, we cannot be competitive. We need to have cheaper, better, more reliable sources of energy, and those take massive investments. And it also takes individuals to go out there and get them done. So I'm happy to see that a few of you in the next few years will become energy champions in Africa. And last but not least, I mentioned that there were small producers and small farmers. But if we look at Africa, we're probably the last continent where true agribusiness has not been developed. So we don't have very extensive food production like we can. We have very fertile soil, we have a lot of water in some countries, and this is a true great potential. It's one that really must not be undermined. Don't think it's too hard.